Kinsey, let's start with the royals. Page 6 is reporting that Meghan Markle felt humiliated on Prince Harry's most recent UK trip and that the trip turned into a nightmare, forcing Markle and her children to return home to California earlier than they had hoped. Kinsey, it's also been reported that Markle's frustrations came from the couple not receiving taxpayer-funded security and not being allowed to stay at Buckingham Palace.
And her husband lost big in court. No one wants to be seen on the arm of a loser. I think that this trip was a reality check. Harry has spent years insisting he can be half in and half out of the monarchy. And the British public just reminded him that isn't how it works, and if you look at the media that was generated while he was there, for the most part, he was rejected. And the nightmare wasn't just the trip. It was discovering that the privilege of royalty, doesn't automatically survive after you quit your job.
Look, we've got to start with Meghan and Harry. Of course, they went on this trip to the UK. There was a bit of will they, won't they? Harry goes by himself, and then suddenly Meghan Markle with the kids in they trot as well. But there have been some reports that the family reunion that they had with the King and the Queen may have not gone as planned for Meghan. There are some suggestions that it probably wasn't warm and fuzzy. I can't imagine why, Maureen. But what's your take on this reunion?
The reporting, Danica, is coming so fast and so many conflicting narratives. And most interestingly, and we've been talking about this on The Nerve all this week, the briefings from Harry's camp are differing from the briefings from Meghan's camp. This is significant, but because when you see a high profile married couple who are working with stakes this high, the new question is, does Harry really have a way back in? It was briefed that Meghan would be joining Harry last week in the UK for the entire week with the children. In fact, she only showed up at the very end of the week. No photos taken of Meghan, which nullifies her claims, Harry's claims that they can't possibly return to the United Kingdom without royal security because the press won't leave them alone. And the reporting now is out of People magazine that, which is her preferred outlet, historically very friendly to her. So they clearly have a good relationship, that Meghan has always let Harry take the lead with his family. She's supportive of him having a good relationship with his family. Harry's camp, meanwhile, my colleague at the Daily Mail, Alison Boshoff, is reporting that a source who is not quite sympathetic to the Sussexes, listen to this phrasing, it's fascinating. What I quote, when Harry was madly in love with Meghan. Oh. He was happy to let her take the lead, was. Now that same source said, the veil has been lifted.
Wow. Okay. So in the past tense,
the Sussexes with their children were able to go to Highgrove. They flew into the country. They go to Highgrove, perhaps other parts of the UK as well, and then they go back home. Does it make a mockery of their demands for 24/7 royal security, given that was not provided?
Making it crisp. Prince Harry, Meghan and Sparkle, and the two children to see their grandfather. We're not quite sure how long it lasted. Some people are saying an hour. Some are saying more. The fallout from it has been we're all sitting waiting for it to be leaked. Nothing so far. Apparently William was appalled. The following day, Harry looked like the cat that got the cream, because you and I both know that the Sussex brand's dead now, isn't it? Anywhere in the world, unless they can actually prove to have some link still with the very family they spend their entire life slagging off.
Wanted the king's embrace, and if she got that seal of approval, that good housekeeping seal of approval, she would be able to monetize that. She would be able to use that to her advantage, and the palace was very smart on this one.
He was very happy, but I'll tell you, I don't think William was very happy. I don't think the Queen was very happy, but I'll tell you why I think it's clever. And I thought about this overnight because I don't know much else to do because I don't sleep. His son has been emotionally blackmailing him and wants to deal and titles before the King passes. That's me being very straight and very honest with everybody, because there isn't a chance in hell that William will ever thaw. That's my opinion. So the king was under that sort of pressure, didn't want to be criticised for not seeing his grandchildren.
Saying out loud. What actually went down?
She didn't exactly get what she wants, and she certainly didn't win. A lot of us were frightened that Meghan would be able to manipulate the king, but I think in this instant, nothing has changed. They met for an hour and a half, they had tea, they talked about stuff that had no big relevance, small talk. There's no one better than the royal family for making chit-chat. If ever you've been around the royals, they say nothing. It's like cotton candy. They just talk and they don't say anything. And so he can sit there for an hour and a half and say absolutely nothing to press. He would love to have a relationship with these grandchildren. He doesn't. They've Skyped, they've made some phone calls, but this wasn't what they wanted. They would love to be able to fix this on a family level, Meghan, but that's what the problem is here. Harry and Meghan are not interested in fixing the family. They want a professional relationship. It's about the money. It's about the association to royalty. It's about being close to power.
Harry and the king to have sorted out their relationship, because you would expect the king to go to something like the opening of the Invictus Games next year. It would be standard, almost normal royal protocol.
And so she desperately wanted a photograph. We know the world we live in. We know the world of social media. We want to see a picture of the king, of Meghan, of the children, of Harry, of everybody smiling. The palace said absolutely not. This is not a state visit. This is not even an official visit. This is a family visit. And so there's no photograph.
47 minutes. That's reportedly how long it took for months of build-up, years of estrangement, and what was supposed to be a real family reconciliation to fall apart at Highgrove. No photo, no statement, no warm headline, just a quiet exit, a quick flight home, and a royal family left to pick through the wreckage of what everyone hoped would be a turning point. So what actually happened? And more importantly, what does it tell us about how this entire saga really works? Let's get into it. For the better part of 2 years, the working assumption inside royal circles was simple. Meghan Markle wasn't coming back to the UK. Not with the kids anyway. The security dispute alone, the ongoing back and forth over whether the Sussexes would receive taxpayer-funded protection, seemed like enough of a wall to keep any visit off the table indefinitely. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, that changed. Reports emerged that Meghan had quietly landed in Britain with Archie and Lilibet, not for a public appearance, not for a brand event, but reportedly to sit down with King Charles at his private Highgrove estate. No press rollout, no advance notice. Just a low-key arrival that, according to royal watchers, caught almost everyone off guard. If you'd asked most royal commentators on a Monday whether this meeting would happen, the answer would have been a flat no. By midweek, it reportedly did. And on paper, this looked significant. This would mark the first time King Charles had reportedly seen his son's children since the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee back in 2022. 3 years is a long time to go without seeing your grandchildren. Long enough that even royal insiders suggested it was weighing on him. So why now? That's the question worth sitting with for a second, because the timing here matters more than people give it credit for. This wasn't framed as a spontaneous family reunion. It reportedly came together after private negotiations, the kind that take weeks, not days, to arrange. Someone decided the terms. Someone decided who would be in the room. And someone decided, very deliberately, that there would be no cameras. That's not how organic reconciliations usually look. That's how carefully managed optics look. Here's where the story gets messy, because, depending on which account you believe, this meeting was either a modest step forward or a complete disaster dressed up as diplomacy. What multiple reports agree on, the visit was short, really short, somewhere between 45 minutes and just over an hour, depending on the source. Practically nothing for a first face-to-face in 3 years. Some accounts describe tea, small talk, and conversation that never move much beyond the surface. No raised voices, no dramatic confrontation, but also nothing resembling the emotional reunion Meghan had reportedly been hoping for. And that gap between what she expected and what she got appears to be at the centre of this entire story. Sources close to the family reportedly indicated that expectations going in were mismatched from the start. Meghan, according to these accounts, had specific ideas about how this visit should go, reportedly including requests around accommodations and logistics that didn't materialise the way she'd hoped. Instead of the grand royal welcome some assumed she wanted, the visit stayed firmly on the family's terms, at a private estate, under conditions set well in advance. Meanwhile, King Charles reportedly left the meeting in a noticeably different mood than his daughter-in-law. While Meghan was seen leaving looking tense and visibly unsettled, the king was described by some insiders as calm, even satisfied with how things had gone. That contrast alone has fueled a lot of the speculation about what actually happened behind those doors. Was this a genuine attempt at healing that simply didn't land? Or was it always going to be a controlled, limited interaction, something closer to a formality than a reunion? If you want to understand how this meeting was really perceived on the inside, look at what didn't happen. No photograph. In the royal world, photos aren't just keepsakes, they're statements. A single image of the king with his grandchildren would have done more PR work than 1,000 press releases. Proof of reconciliation, warmth, and a family moving forward. It's the kind of image royal watchers and, frankly, the Sussexes' own media operation would have loved to have in hand. It never came, and that absence speaks volumes. Royal officials were reportedly clear that this was a private family visit, not a state occasion, and that distinction apparently mattered enough to rule out any photo opportunity entirely. No documentation, no souvenir, nothing for either side to point to as evidence that things are better now. If you're inclined to be generous, you could call that respect for privacy. If you're inclined to be skeptical, and on this channel we usually are, you might call it something else. An unwillingness on the palace's part to hand over an image that could be repurposed, reused, or monetized down the line. Either way, the silence said more than a statement ever could. Because here's the thing, this was never just about Meghan and Charles sitting down for tea. This meeting sat on top of years of unresolved tension that a 47-minute visit was never going to fix. Start with Harry and William. That relationship has been reportedly frayed for years, and it's not the kind of rift that gets patched up because their father hosted a family lunch. This is about competing narratives, about loyalty, about public statements, about years of very public airing of private grievances. A short meeting at Highgrove doesn't touch that. Then there's the fallout from Harry's memoir, which reportedly strained his relationship with Queen Camilla in ways that go well beyond typical in-law friction. Whatever was said in that book didn't just create headlines. It reportedly created a lasting chill that a single family visit isn't positioned to thaw. And underneath all of it sits the biggest question of all. What does King Charles actually want here? Multiple accounts suggest he's caught in an impossible position. A father who reportedly wants a relationship with his grandchildren balanced against a monarch who has to think about institutional stability, precedent, and how every single move gets read by the public and the press. That's not a position where you get to just follow your heart. Every gesture gets weighed for what it signals, not just what it means personally. And that, more than anything, might explain why this meeting felt so restrained. Let's step back and ask the obvious question. What was Meghan actually hoping to walk away with here? Some royal commentators have floated a theory worth taking seriously, that beyond any personal desire for reconciliation, a public photographed moment of approval from the king would have carried real value for the Sussex brand. A visible seal of goodwill from the monarchy is the kind of thing that's difficult to buy and easy to leverage. In interviews, in future projects, in simply reshaping the ongoing narrative about the family's relationship with the institution they walked away from. That's not a wild accusation. It's just how modern celebrity and royal PR tend to work. Image is currency. And a meeting like this, if it had gone the way some hoped, would have been worth a lot more than the 47 minutes it apparently lasted. Instead, what came out the other side was ambiguous at best. No photo, no statement, no clear signal of where things stand. Just a quiet exit, a quick return home, and a royal family that, by most accounts, went right back to business as usual. Was it a step forward? Maybe, in the smallest possible sense. Grandfather and grandchildren were, apparently, in the same room. But calling it a breakthrough requires a fairly generous read of a meeting that reportedly ended almost as soon as it started, with nothing tangible to show for it. Here's the honest read. This wasn't an ending, and it wasn't a beginning. It was a brief, tightly controlled interaction sandwiched between years of estrangement on one side and an uncertain future on the other. If anything, the most revealing part of this whole story isn't what was said inside Highgrove. It's everything that surrounded it. The lack of advance notice, the lack of a photo, the mismatched reactions on the way out, the speed with which Meghan and the children left the country afterward, while Harry stayed behind for his own commitments. None of that reads like a family that just turned a corner. It reads like two sides that agreed to a narrow, carefully bounded interaction, and then went right back to their respective corners. Maybe that's the real story here. Not a dramatic reconciliation, and not a dramatic collapse either. Just a reminder that some rifts don't close in a single afternoon, no matter how much the headlines might want them to. So that's where things stand, for now. If you want the real breakdown of what's happening with Harry, Meghan, and the royal family, minus the spin, this is the channel for it. We cover this stuff every week, and we call it exactly how we see it. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Drop a like if this one made sense to you, and let us know in the comments. Do you think this was a real step toward reconciliation, or just a photo op that didn't even get the photo? See you in the next one.